Hello, I'm Jim Slusher, a representative of the Daily Herald editorial board. Today is Wednesday, May 18th. We're pleased to begin a joint interview with candidates for the Republican nomination for Illinois governor at February 28th primary election. 6 candidates are competing for the right to face the Democratic candidate for governor in November. With us today are Darren Bailey, Richard Irvin, Gary Rabin, Paul Schimpf, Max Solomon, and Jesse Sullivan. We look forward to spending the next hour talking with them about their qualifications and their visions for the state. And I'd like to start this interview by giving each candidate 1 minute to introduce themselves and describe the primary goals they'd like to achieve for Illinois in the next term. And let's go alphabetically, starting with you, Darren Bailey.
Hey, good afternoon, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today on such what turned out to be a beautiful afternoon across Illinois. So I'm a farmer, farm corn, soybeans, and wheat to 12,000 acres, have a trucking company, have an excavating business, and we're blessed that all of our 4 children and 11 grandchildren are able to live and flourish in Southeast Illinois, and we want to keep it that way. So, and that's pretty well my primary goals. I'm running to restore hope to the good people all across this state. And I believe that if we bring back safe streets, if we restore our education aspect, and if we support all of the families so that they can work and raise a family and thrive again in Illinois, I think those are the ingredients to success for Illinois in the future.
Okay, thank you very much. Mayor Irvin.
Good afternoon. My name is Richard Irvin. I'm running to be governor of the state of Illinois, great state of Illinois. And I'm a combat veteran who proudly served our country in the first Gulf War. I am a former prosecutor who worked side by side with the police to personally put violent criminals behind bars, drug dealers, gangbangers, wife beaters, and shut down drug houses and make communities similar to one I grew up in low-income housing, make them safer and improve their quality of life. I'm the mayor of the second largest city in the state of Illinois with a proven record of reducing crime by supporting our police and law enforcement, by attracting new business and new residents, by reducing taxes and giving money back to the taxpayers. You know, under J.B. Pritzker, crime is out of control, tax and spending is out of control, corruption is out of control. My record is fighting against all those things. And I want to fight against all those things and return Illinois to the true land of Lincoln again as the next governor.
Thank you very much. Next would be Gary Rabin.
Hi, Jim, Marnie, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it, having us here today, and it's a great day. It's Gary Rabine, Jim, there's a pronunciation. And that's why I'm saying it's Rabine time, so that people remember that better. But most people get it wrong. Hey, I'm running for. I'm inspired to run for governor of Illinois because I want for 4 reasons. I have 3 grandkids: Lincoln, Sienna, and Raphael, who I want to stay in this great state of Illinois, raise their families here someday, and have the same opportunities I had. I've been blessed with in Illinois. I also lost my wife 18 months ago, Cheryl. Cheryl's buried in my community. I don't want people shipping my body in from outside this state. My plot is next to my wife's, and that's where I want to end up, in McHenry County, Illinois. But I got to tell you, my experience has brought me to a place where I know my blessings and experience are going to take me to a place where I can do a job that most people can't. I'm a business builder and a turnaround guy. I built multiple businesses, a couple dozen, actually over 30 companies in the last 40 years, small businesses and mid-sized businesses all over the country. And I've seen how our state's gone from being the best state in the middle of the country 15 years ago with average regulation, average taxation, to today being the worst state in the country when it comes to the pressure on small businesses with the heaviest regulation and the pressure on property owners with the highest tax. So my goal is to get people to be moving back into Illinois instead of out of Illinois at a pace that's a record pace by 2025. I want Illinois to be the state where more people are moving into per capita than any other state in the country. And I'm very confident we can get that done. So that's me, Gary Rabine, for governor. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Schimpf, you would be next.
Well, thank you, Jim. And Gary, my name's a little bit more difficult. My last name's a little bit more difficult to pronounce than yours, but it's amazing. More people have trouble with with Rabine than with Schimpf, oddly enough, in this campaign. But thank you, Jim, and folks at the Daily Herald, and then all of your subscribers that are eventually watching this once it's online. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to tell you a little bit about myself and taking the time to find out about all of us that are running for Illinois governor on the Republican side. My name is Paul Schimpf, and I'm running for Illinois governor because Illinois needs common sense conservative leadership that we can trust. I am not a career politician. I grew up in Southern Illinois, Monroe County. And I spent my adult life in the United States Marine Corps after graduating from the United States Naval Academy. I started out as an infantry officer, then I went to law school, became a prosecutor in the Marines, prosecuted everything from bad checks to drug dealers, rapes, sexual assault, attempted murder, even worked the trial of Saddam Hussein when I was in Iraq, which gives me some perspective to appreciate how truly blessed we are in this country. I got out of the Marine Corps in 2013, came back to Illinois and got involved in politics because, when I hung up my uniform for the last time, that didn't change who I am. I believe you have a duty to serve your country, your state, and your community. I was a state senator for 4 years, which is important for two reasons. One, I have a conservative voting record that backs up all my policy positions, so you don't have to wonder where I stand on the issues. Unfortunately, in Illinois, we've been burned, and we've learned that talk is cheap and don't know where people stand unless they have a legislative record. The other thing that being a state senator gives me is I understand how Illinois government works. I have 2 years on JCAR, the Joint Committee for Administrative Rules. You have to know how the process works and to make positive change. Change in Illinois starts with the defeat of J.B. Pritzker. Until that happens, we cannot make the positive change our state needs. I am the candidate that is the most viable in the general election. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you. I have to stop you there. Max Solomon, you would be next.
Thank you, Jim, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen that are watching. My name is Max Solomon, Solomon. My website is www.maxsolomon.org. I identify as Christian, conservative, Republican in that order. And that could be said to be why I'm running for governor of the state of Illinois. I believe strongly that faith is missing in politics. In a state like Illinois, we need to bring common sense, ethics, and morals back to politics. And I believe that the first thing that is pushed away is faith in God. It's time to bring that back into politics. Secondly, Illinois does not have revenue problem. Illinois has a spending problem. I've identified that the biggest part of our spending goes towards the pension crisis. I believe strongly that if we fix the pension crisis, we will get Illinois back on the track to fiscal health. And that's why I came up with CPR for Illinois, Constitutional Pension Reform. We fix Article 13, Section 5 of our Illinois Constitution. We will do better in Illinois. People will move back in and we'll be able to keep jobs in here. Secondly, Illinois has gotten too big. Government is too big, over 7,000.
I'm going to have to stop you there, Mr. Solomon. We're a little over a minute, but hopefully I'll get a chance to get into more of those things a little bit later. Jesse Sullivan, you would be next.
Great. Hey, everybody. My name is Jesse Sullivan. I am a Central Illinois guy. I love my home. It's where I grew up working on a farm as one of 8 kids. It's where my wife and I moved back 6 years ago after business school to raise our family. I have 7 kids, 5 young ones and 2 foster daughters, and just feel really blessed to raise them in Illinois. But I hate our politics. So a political outsider who really wants to change things and make the state better. For me, my dad said I was the biggest redneck to ever attend Oxford University and also get an MBA at Stanford. To me, it's about being a bridge, somebody who can connect downstate and upstate, be able to represent both of those equally well. And we need somebody who can be a bridge. And I'm a true conservative that can lead at this time. My experience doing counterinsurgency over in Afghanistan, I was a Army civilian, helping set up local police units over there. So when it comes to protect and serve and making our streets safe again, you know, I protect and serve at my core. And when it comes to building the economy, I've been, you know, backing businesses and investing in technology companies around the world, but felt like, man, my own neighbors, my own home state, it's so full of these corrupt insiders that I need to step in and do something about it. So my faith drove me to do it. My family and I are taking this on, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity.
Well, thank you very much. And you're leading into what makes, I think, a good first question for us. Actually, we have a sounding board of representatives from around our area and readers. And I reached out to them and asked them, what are some questions that you would like to ask Republican candidates for governor? And one of the first ones that I got back was, I think, one that I think is a great first question for any similar interview. So Jesse Sullivan, we'll start with you. The question is, what are the three most important issues facing the state of Illinois? How would you address them?
Yeah. So for me, high taxes, corruption, crime, and education. I have to say those four as a parent. I have to put in education. We've actually created plans. You know, we are not just about hollow talking points. I want to be an innovator governor. We've been used to being last in almost everything. I want to be first again, and we need a next generation conservative to do that. So my leadership style is to say, I don't want to be like these politicians that say they know everything. Let's go grab the frontline people, the law enforcement officers around the state. What do you think our crime plan should be? So we put together that crime plan. Check out jessesullivan.com/crime. You know, and our education plan, similar, same with our anti-corruption plan. On each of these areas, I have the background and experience to be able to lead on them. You know, and I don't want to take up too much time with each of these plans, but I will say that with the economy and being able to move people back in, it really takes somebody who has experience in business, not another professional politician who says, hey, you know, they stand against and maybe, you know, sue the governor, or maybe they, you know, like their hollow talking points. We need somebody who actually knows business and can create jobs here, because we got to have a commitment to growth and get rid of these high taxes to encourage people back into our state. And repealing the anti-police bill on the crime side is just number one. That's what law enforcement told us. And corruption, we do not need career politicians in the state of Illinois. It should be temporary public service. And so we have our corruption plan. We've been endorsed by the Legislative Inspector General on that. And so in each of these areas, we put together a team, you know, of people that can lead and a real plan to take on these problems.
Jim, you're on mute.
I'm sorry, I knew that was going to happen. Max Solomon, you would be next. What are the three most important issues facing the state, and how would you address them?
Thank you, Jim. For me, it's the spending problem. And that's why my first priority will be in fixing the pension. Illinois pension, Article 13, Section 5, needs to be amended. In 2015, the Illinois Supreme Court interpreted the language of that constitutional provision, and we know that it cannot be diminished or impaired. Well, that's the source and the genesis of our pension crisis. We need to fix that. We need the pension reform, and we need it to be constitutional, CPR for Illinois. Number two is consolidation of government units. Illinois leads the nation in the total amount of government units. Government has grown too big and too much. We need to cut down, and once we cut down, I believe strongly that we will be able to get back on the fiscal health. We need to get rid of duplicate government services and make sure that every agency of government is working efficiently. Number three is education. We need to get rid of the idea that government can teach our kids better than we can. We need to empower the parents. We need to put power back in the hands of the parents. We need school choice in Illinois. We need vouchers in Illinois. Whatever the parents choose to do with their kids as far as education is what the government should support. And Article 10 of our Constitution supports that. We're going to ban CRT and we're going to ban CSE, comprehensive sexual education. Those are three top items for me, and more can be found on www.maxsolomon.org.
Okay, thank you. Paul Schimpf.
Thank you, Jim. The three most important issues facing our state are the three issues that Carolyn Schofield, my lieutenant governor, running mate, and I are campaigning on, which are parents' rights, safe communities and safe families, and then restoring trust in government and ending administrative overreach. We have put out a proposal for this. Our policy agenda is called A New Start for Illinois. You can find that on our campaign website, Schimpf, the number 4, Illinois.com. Our New Start for Illinois policy agenda has 6 pillars to it. Now, it's important to understand that Carolyn and I have a lot more ideas, but we have narrowed it down to 6 things that people can focus on. And the reason we just kept it at 6 is really, we've seen this playbook before where Bruce Rauner came in and had the turnaround agenda that had something like 44 different proposals on it. It was just too big. It was too unwieldy. The 6 points that we're proposing, people can understand and grasp. They are really quickly parents' rights. We're talking about curriculum transparency, a constitutional amendment that makes it clear that it's parents that are the ones that make the decisions about education and healthcare for their children. We're also running on giving more legal protection to law enforcement. We think that law enforcement and first responders and corrections officers should have protection under Illinois hate crimes law. We're also advocating for some fundamental property tax reform because property taxes represent a threat to the people of Illinois' financial security. And then lastly, when it comes to restoring trust in government and ending administrative overreach, we propose ending the predatory practice of charging tax on tax. And we also want to make changes to the Illinois Administrative Procedures Act that would require 7 positive votes from JCAR in order for administrative regulations that raise taxes or fees or emergency administrative regulations to become effective. And that's something that having experience as a state legislator, as a senator is important. I understand how the Illinois Administrative Procedures Act works. I understand Illinois government, and you need somebody that has some understanding in order to make positive change. Bruce Rauner tried to say he was an outsider coming in, and look how that worked out for us. Not well at all.
Thank you. Gary Rabine.
So I'd like to compare my outsider executive experience more to our president, Donald Trump, compared to the other 2 presidents and the last three presidents. Big difference. And when it comes to economy and job creation, all that, I believe that we need a business builder and a turnaround business guy like myself, somebody that understands economics, understands how bad government kills business jobs and people leaving. We look at it. I look at 3 things also. We look at our public safety, some of the worst in the country. We've got to turn that around. If we don't turn that around, nothing else matters. If, 4 times more murders in the city of Chicago than New York City. That's ferocious. I mean, when we look at the people coming in through our borders of Illinois, because we're the friendliest state for felons, for illegal felons. All right, we can't accept that any longer. We got more human trafficking and drug trafficking than any other state in the country, from what I'm hearing. All right, when I look at public safety, we're an embarrassment. We got to turn that around. When I look at what we're doing to our parents with this getting rid of their notification, a 12, 13, 14-year-old girl that's pregnant doesn't have to notify her parents anymore, but for an abortion, that's sickening. It gives again a trafficker the total ability to traffic and prostitute a young girl and get her abortion without any responsibility of a parent in the life of that child. It's making it easier for those same bad characters. And when we look at this whole picture, it's all about serving at a world-class level. When I look at a state like Florida, what have they done in the last 15 years? They've become the world-class state in the country where people want to be. We should be that. It's ridiculous that we've lost, 122,000 people last year left our state, and about 211,000 moved into Florida. All right, so that means we lost about a little over $1 billion of tax revenues, about $7 billion of taxable income, but about over $1 billion of tax revenues left our state last year. We're talking about a casino that's going to save the day, and in Chicago, taking over the Tribune building. And what's that going to bring? 30, 40, 50 million, just nothing compared to this loss. A year before, we lost just under $1 billion of taxes leaving our state, revenues leaving our state. In Florida, the place where they're delivering world-class customer service to their taxpayers with great taxes on homes and properties, great regulatory reform they've done over the last 10 years now to bring businesses to their state. We need that. I'm the person that can do that. And when we do that, by 2025, we're going to be the state where more people are moving in per capita than any other state in the country. That's my moonshot goal, and we could get there. We can turn this around, but it's got to be somebody that's got a lot of business experience, negotiations experience, and I'm that person. So thanks.
Thank you. Richard Earl.
Question you asked were the top 3 most important issues. And as I drive around the state of Illinois and talk to residents, you know, it doesn't matter where you're at, whether you're in Chicago or the suburbs, whether you're in central Illinois, or whether you're in southern Illinois, the top 3 things still ring true. And those 3 things are crime, taxes and wasteful spending, and corruption. And you know, a wise person once told me that, don't tell me what you're going to do, show me what you've done. So when we're talking about running for governor, you have to look at everybody's background and what we've done. As mayor of the 2nd largest city in the state of Illinois, I've fought against all those 3 things and addressed all those things in the city of Aurora. You know, the crime. We raised our budget for the police department and support our men and women who wear that badge in law enforcement, and crime went down. As simple as that. You know, we got to support our law enforcement and those and back the blue. And those that wear that uniform protect us and keep us safe every day. Secondly, you know, taxes and wasteful spending. First of all, wasteful spending. Immediately I became mayor, we put a decrement in every single department of 5 to 10% and did less with more, or more with less. We did more work with less cost to the city and the taxpayer. And because of it, we're able to reduce our taxes year after year after year. And we also expanded our economic development. We've done more economic development in the city of Aurora in 4 years than other administrations and mayors have done collectively in 40 years. And because of that, we expanded our tax base and took relief from our taxpayers. We were able to give money back to our residents. And again, we reduced those taxes year after year after year. Every single year I've been mayor. We can do the exact same thing for the state. And finally, corruption. We need to fight against that Madigan Pritzker corruption that has prevented this state from moving forward. And what we did there in the city of Aurora is we made sure we had a third party review, you know, all of any complaints, ethical complaints that come through the city. Now, initially when I got there, it was up to the mayor to review ethical, complaints or issues that came forward, with the city council, backing me up. I said, that doesn't make any sense. We've got to make sure we have a third party looking at it, making sure we're always doing things above board and none of us are beyond reproach. So we focused on those things, reducing crime, making sure we reduce taxes and expand our tax base, making sure we fought corruption. We were able to put Aurora back on top. We can do that exact same thing for the state of Illinois. And as governor, I absolutely will.
Thank you. Oh, and then Darren Bailey.
Absolutely. Rampant crime, failed schools, and high taxes. Those are the three issues that are plaguing citizens of Illinois right now. I love it when someone brings up the thought of hollow talking points, because that's what I hear a lot in many of these debates. I was called into service as a representative in 2019 when I got frustrated with the high taxes. I did something about it. And I've been fighting those high taxes and against those tax increases for 2 years as a state representative, and for the last 2 years as a state senator. And I fought hard early on in 2019 against a gas tax increase. It's appalling and it needs changed. It is destroying Illinois. I served for 17 years as a school board member, so I know public schools in and out. I've served on the education committees as a representative and as a senator, and I know that what it's going to take to bring accountability and transparency to public education and make it work and help our students and our children prosper again. And then finally, rampant crime that is plaguing our streets. I've also been at the side and with law enforcement during these past 4 years as well, trying to raise awareness to what's wrong. This egregious Safety Act that was passed in January of 2021 that must be repealed to let the men and women who serve and protect actually do their job. So I stood up and I sued pursued Governor Pritzker against these mandates when everyone else stood silent, put my neck out on the line. And there's going to be business owners, there's going to be hairdressers, there's going to be a pastors that are going to be listening to this message, and they know full good and well what we accomplished with that. So I'm the one that's been standing. I'm the one that's been pushing back, and I am the one that will be helping to restore Illinois and the hope therein for the people, the families of Illinois.
Okay, thank you. My next question deals more with you as a manager, perhaps, than with a specific issue. But Richard Irvin, we'll start with you.
Hey, Jim. Jim, this is Renee.
Hi, Renee.
Hi, I'm sorry, guy. Could I do a follow-up question to the last question before you change?
Sure, go ahead.
If you're okay with that.
Oh, that's good.
You got everybody's talking about crime, and I understand that, but I was looking at a WGN poll from a couple of weeks ago that showed of likely Republican primary voters, and 15% of them put crime at the top of their list. 54% of them put the economy at the top of their list. I'm wondering if some of you have certainly touched on the economy, but I'd really like to hear each of you zero in a little bit on that, if at all possible. And as an addendum, I'm particularly interested in looking at the southern third of the state in terms of the economy, which is probably the most in need of economic development. So I guess I'm asking you a two-parter here. Can you be a little more specific than you have been in the last couple of questions with how Illinois frankly brings in more business, and how they do that all over the state, not just in the obvious areas like the Chicago area? Thank you so much.
Okay, and let's go in the same order that we just went before. So Jesse Sullivan, we'll start with you.
Yeah, great. This is where I think it's really going to be one. Every person has to take a look at our backgrounds, and records, like who's actually set up well to create the jobs of the future in Illinois, who's actually been doing it. Really, if you look, Gary and I on the business side, we've actually been doing it. We've created thousands and thousands of jobs by backing entrepreneurs around the world in some of the world's toughest places, from Lagos, Nigeria to Karachi, Pakistan, down in Mexico. And really, it was my faith that said, I'm doing this around the world, but my own neighbors are all leaving. 120,000 in the last year. What can I do to step up? And so on that, I'm the only candidate in this race that signed the Taxpayer Protection Pledge, saying I absolutely refuse to raise new taxes on the people of Illinois. I will veto any new tax increase because we don't have a revenue problem, we have a spending problem. And so we have to lose this mindset that you can actually tax your way out of our debt problem. Because what happens is those who can leave are leaving the state. It leaves a lower tax base that you have to tax even more to get the same revenue out of. It's a downward death spiral. And so we need a commitment to growth. We need to say we are going to cut our taxes, and we are going to put in place, like taking on the hard problems of our pension crisis, because Warren Buffett looks at a state before he invests there and says, what is the unfunded pension liability of that state? When you're the highest in the nation, no one wants to invest in our state. And so if you look at manufacturers downstate, you look at agriculture, like some of the high taxes on our property taxes and the energy prices that we have when it comes to the manufacturing sector, those are what are killing people and driving people out of the state. They don't want to reinvest here. And so you're going to have to take on those core problems of these really high tax burden. And then you're also going to have to say, hey, we are going to be a promoter around the nation. We're going to have to compete, because Florida and Texas, we need to look more like them, not New York and California. And so they have zero income tax states. That needs to be our North Star if we're going to compete in the future. And who would you want as governor to go around like the way Youngkin did, convince Boeing to leave our state? Like, we need a governor that will compete, get out there and compete. I know business. I'm going to compete for the people of Illinois to get the jobs of the future here all across the state. I'm a Central Illinois guy. We're going to bring them downstate just as well as we are around Chicago.
Thank you.
Max Sullivan, how about you?
Yes, thank you for that question, Renee. One of the most important things that any state can do when it comes to economy and jobs. It's not to depend on government or politicians to create jobs. We create opportunities for individuals and residents to create their own jobs. And how do we do that? Illinois is one of the most deeply regulated states in the nation. Industries are regulated, professionals are regulated, businesses are regulated. We need to deregulate. We need to deregulate and allow people who are business owners to be able to function and conduct their business where there's less government involvement. The second thing we need to do is taxes, reduce taxes. One of the reasons why people move out of Illinois, commercial and residential, is because of high property taxes. We're the first in the nation. Some people argue we're behind New Jersey. I don't think so. I think we beat New Jersey in that. We need property tax reform. But here's the question: why are taxes so high? What are we doing with this money? We're paying our debts. And that's why the Democrats are so good at it. The first thing they do is raise taxes. Pritzker, within a few weeks of coming in, he raised taxes. Well, what are we paying this tax? What are we using this tax money for? Pensions, right? We'll pay pension. We need to fix pension, and it has to be a constitutional approach. And then we have to make the business climate in Illinois conducive for businesses to want to come back, for people to want to live here. And then we have to increase the tax base. And then we begin on the path to not only economic flourishing, we'll begin a path to fiscal health in Illinois.
Great. Paul Schimpf?
Well, thank you, Renee, for the question. And it really goes, there's two parts to it. On the economy versus crime issue. Yes, the economy is important. The people of Illinois are getting annihilated right now with inflation. It is absolutely destroying people's livelihoods and savings. And we have to address the crime problem in order to address the economic problem, because the reality is, if people don't want to come to Chicago, our state's largest economic engine, that's going to kill our state. If people don't feel like they are safe in Illinois, that's going to kill our state. J.B. Pritzker, I talk about the Pritzker leadership deficit a lot, and one of the best examples of that is in his last two State of the State speeches. He has failed to address the fact that Illinois is undergoing a population exodus. When we're talking about the different economic metrics, whether it's GDP, whether it's unemployment rate, those are important. But the most important one, the pivotal one, is our people leaving our state, is our population increasing or decreasing. And under J.B. Pritzker, people have continued to exit Illinois. And we won't solve any of our economic problems unless Illinois is a state that people want to come to. So that's why crime is important, because it links to the economy. And then in our New Start for Illinois policy agenda, we've addressed some of the economic issues. We've addressed property taxes. We've also addressed the trying to end administrative overreach. It's the administrative agencies that are choking the life out of our small businesses. Illinois was ranked 47th out of 50 states for being the least business friendly. So we are addressing that. With regard to your question about Southern Illinois, I'm the furthest south of the candidates. I live 30 minutes south of downtown St. Louis in Monroe County. I am right up against the Mississippi River. So I see the effect of people going across to Missouri to buy cheaper gas, to get things cheaper in Missouri. It is devastating to Southern Illinois. We need to be more competitive. But the other thing that I just want to touch on really briefly is Southern Illinois has two economic drivers, agriculture, but also energy. And J.B. Pritzker has declared war on the energy industry in Illinois. He declared war on the coal industry. I am an all of the above guy, but we need an energy policy that is going to make energy in Illinois more dependable and more affordable. We don't need an energy policy based on environmental virtue signaling like what we have right now. And I have the background, having worked in energy and environment issues while I was in the Pentagon for the Department of Defense. I've actually represented the United States in international energy and environmental negotiations. I frankly have probably forgotten more about climate change than JB Pritzker currently knows. But I have the background to push back on these energy policies that are just devastating for downstate Illinois.
Thank you. Gary Rabine.
Hey, Renee, great question. I addressed it a little bit in my opening, but I got to tell you, this is my passion. I've been building businesses across America, small businesses, paving parking lots for building owners across America. And what I've learned as I've grown my business the last 15 years is, again, 15 years ago, we were pretty average. If anybody look at me and say, boy, you're blessed to be in Illinois, and I would agree with them 100%. Today, people look at me and say, why are you still there? Of our 13 companies, 7 or 8 of them should not be here anymore based on pure economics and liabilities. And that's a deep subject. I can go with anybody. But I got to tell you, I've been part of this organization called Job Creators Network for about 12 years. That's given me even more insight in the regulatory environment in America and jobs in America, why they leave America to other countries. And as I've grown to be a leader in this organization, we've really divulged all the worst states in the country and how they become the worst. And we've watched states do amazing things. And I got to tell you, my goal is to make Illinois like Florida, without the hurricanes though, and 4 seasons. Wouldn't that be cool, right? We got a better environment than Florida, in my opinion, and we need to show it better. We can't show it unless we reduce our regulatory environment to be average of the country. We don't have to be the lowest regulatory environment. We have to do the right things to protect our public and everything else, and our environment, all these things. But we can do it in a way that we're competitive with the rest of the country, like we were 15 years going back. So that's my goal. I got to tell you, when I look at this, it's simple: lower property taxes to the average of the country. I'm committed. Now, I'm absolutely committed not to freezing the taxes, not to fighting more taxes. I'm very committed to lowering our property taxes to the average of the country, just like regulations, which would put us at about 1% on a residential property and under 2% on a commercial property. I know Mr. Irvin talked about, show me what you've done, but I got to tell you, his city of Aurora had the highest taxes. This is by Crane's magazine only a few months ago. The highest property taxes of the biggest states in the country. So I'm not sure what happened there and how he said he's fighting it, because he's not. Either way, then I look at, when we look at bringing businesses back to Illinois and keeping businesses here, right? I'm confident that my network and my ability for business development is like nobody else in the state or the country. I've got this organization, Job Creators Network, with 400,000 businesses within that organization now, mostly small to mid-sized businesses. I guarantee you, when we lower our regulations and we lower our property taxes, I can get thousands of these businesses to want to be in our great state. And then we're going to have more than that. We're going to have our businesses that are here, the people we should love and take care of, growing their businesses and keep their jobs here. So that's my goal is that, and I'm confident we can do it. So my goal, again, that goes back to that 2025 goal, to be in 2025 to be the state with more jobs building and coming into here, more people coming back into our state and growing our state. Over 100,000 people a year will be my goal. That will be the largest per capita growth state in the country at that point.
Thank you. Mayor Irvin, you can respond to some of his issues, as well as if you would talk about the economy.
Absolutely. First, let me respond to Mr. Rabine there. The simple fact is, this was brought up just yesterday. So I just to make sure that I was on top of my game and I wasn't talking, out of school. I looked at the Illinois Department of Revenue, who keeps track of the taxes on every municipality in the state of Illinois. And the reality is, Aurora isn't even in the top 50 in Illinois, let alone the highest in the state. So you guys might want to check your facts before you start throwing that around and tell the truth. I know you guys like to say that, use the word lies a lot. So that sounds a whole lot like a lie, and you might want to check your facts. But the question that was asked is, what do we do for economic development in the state of Illinois? And this just happens to be my wheelhouse. As I said earlier, we've done more economic development in the city of Aurora in my first 4 years as mayor than other mayors' administrations have done collectively in the last 40 years. So the question is, how do you do that? All right, the first thing you got to do is you got to reduce taxes. And until the taxes are reduced, you got to incentivize businesses to come into the city. Second thing is you got to remove the barriers for business setting up shop and the red tape. And I'll go into exactly what I mean in a second. Finally, you've got to look around, we're the 6th largest state in the union. You got to look around this country and around this world and identify businesses that, that would be a fit in Illinois and put them in the areas that need it most. The question you asked was, how do you uplift the southern part of Illinois? Well, the first thing you got to do is you got to look at the infrastructure. I was talking to Mayor Murfreesboro, Illinois, the other day, talked about the fact that there is no infrastructure just for travel from the north, to the south, and talked about the need to having the Southwest connector in the South. Infrastructure, we need broadband, we need things like that. Let me tell you what we did in Aurora. So in Aurora, immediately when I came in, I said, all right, we got to start looking to reduce taxes. And we're able to reduce taxes every single year I've been mayor, which has allowed us to attract all this business that has come to the city. We reduced our permitting process from 6 months down to 60 days, which made it more friendly and user-friendly for businesses to come into the city. And then as mayor personally, I went around the state and around this country and identified businesses that would fit in Aurora and put them in the areas that needed most, the low-income areas like in Harrisburg and Southern Illinois and East St. Louis that used to be booming cities that now lost their jobs and economies and rely just on prisons and the government for employment and schools for colleges for education. Well, we can't do that. I always say if any part of our state is failing, we're all failing. So when we identify these businesses that are fit and we incentivize them and make it easier for them to set up shop here, and given the fact that we're the land of Lincoln with all these natural resources that we have at our fingertips to use, we put them in areas where people need jobs to fix those economies and start lifting up this whole state and not just focus on Chicago in the north, but focus on the state as a whole, which is exactly what I did in the city of Aurora and our 45 square miles, uplifting the whole city. We do the same thing with every city in the state of Illinois that needs it most, especially those in the South, that are struggling with no jobs and no economy. And we bring pride back to the state of Illinois.
Okay, thank you. And finally, Darren Bailey.
Nope, thank you for the follow-up question as well. I've been in downtown Chicago yesterday. I'm here today. I'm going to be here tomorrow. It doesn't matter whether we're talking to friends on the south side or business owners on the Magnificent Mile. There are a lot of vacant buildings that have popped up in the last 2 years because businesses have left because they don't feel safe. And we know for a fact that business is not coming back because they don't feel safe. And even on the south side, there is a lot of need and desire for grocery stores and pharmacies nearby, but no one will come and open up shop because of the safety factor. As you suggested, I appreciate the question of the southern third of Illinois because with Paul, I come from there as well. And I've got a picture perfect story in my district. About 60 years ago, Snap-on Tools came and opened up a factory in Wabash County, and they had a choice between Indiana and Illinois, and it was obvious that Illinois is where they wanted to be. But interestingly enough, about 40 years later, they had to close shop and they had to move. And much like the big vacant building of Caterpillar that sits in Aurora, where they packed up and had to move a few years ago because of regulations and taxes. But then about 20 years ago, the Toyota had another amazing opportunity, and they scoped out Southeast Illinois and Southwest Indiana. And you know what they chose? They chose across the Wabash River into Indiana to build shop. So I think if we take a look at Indiana's model of governance, of how they share the wealth, we've got an amazing state in Illinois. And unfortunately, our natural resources are indeed at threat. We import 15% of our energy already, and we're fixing to import a lot more, raising up energy prices for every business and every household in Illinois. And we've got to address that. We've got to talk about that. And that crime and energy, and this is all reasons why industry, why we have such a difficult time attracting industry. And again, the last 2 years as a state senator, the last 2 years prior to that as a state representative, I have been aggressively standing on the floors and speaking out and speaking up And I believe, that is why we are here, because we've been heard, and people appreciate and respect the fact that when someone stands up, putting their neck on the line, addressing the true issues and coming up with solutions. Unfortunately, Republicans aren't heard in the state of Illinois because we're in the super minority. And as governor, I'll be standing up on that platform and talking about that every day and sharing ideas and dreams of prosperity for all Illinoisans so that we can get our act together and move forward for our generations to come.
Thank you all. And Darren, that kind of leads back to the question that I was going to go to before, almost precisely. And we'll start with
I just want to correct something just right quick. Sir Bailey misspoke. Caterpillar did not leave the city of Aurora. Caterpillar was in the city of Montgomery. So you might want to get your facts straight about that. Caterpillar was in Montgomery, which is next to Aurora, not the city of Aurora.
Okay. Well, thank you for correcting that. But you also mentioned the fact that Republicans are in a super minority right now. Realistically, they're likely to be a minority, if not a super minority, in both houses, even after this November. So I'm very curious, and let's start with you, Richard Irvin. I'm very curious about how you, as a Republican governor, would work with an opposition party of that magnitude to achieve the goals that you want to achieve. How would you become successful?
Well, I'd like to answer your question in two parts. The first part is that we are the only campaign, the Irvin-born campaign, that has the resources and the ground game infrastructure, not just to support myself and Avery Bourne for governor, lieutenant governor, but we're going to be looking to support Republicans up and down the ballot to make sure we can get out of the super minority in the House and in the legislature. Matter of fact, we only need 3 seats to flip to get out of the super minority, and we believe that there's 5. It's almost a guarantee. 15 to have Republican control, and we'll chip away at that as much as we possibly can, using our resources, using our infrastructure, using our ground game to not just support us, to support Republicans throughout the state of Illinois. That's our pledge, and that's our plan in the general election and taking over the governor's seat and getting Springfield back on top. Secondly, to answer your questions, how do I work with those folks across the aisle? Well, I'm a Republican in Aurora. I'm a Republican in a Democratic stronghold. The fact is, I've been working across the aisle my whole political career. I've been working with my aldermen in the Republican area, getting things done for the city of Aurora that we need to, getting them on board with my philosophy. And even though I'm a Republican elected, in a Democratic stronghold, they wanted the Republican values and the Republican ideology to lead the government, and it's worked well in Aurora. We've taken Aurora from a second-class city to well above a first-class city in a short period of time. And I've also had the opportunity to work in Springfield, because there are things in Springfield that we need as the second largest city in the state, that we need them to legislation and things we need to get done to move our city forward. So I've had to go to Springfield myself and personally talk to the Democratic leadership about getting legislation passed that supports the city of Aurora. And I've been able to do it effectively working across the aisle. And I will continue that as governor of this state, no matter who's in charge, working with the leadership to make sure we get what's necessary, what we need to get necessarily done for the state of Illinois and our residents.
Thank you. Gary Rabine, how about if you take on that? How would you work with a substantial opposition party?
Yeah, first I'd like to go back to what Mr. Irvin said a minute ago, or before. He said, he basically said I'm lying. Well, I'm not lying. Maybe Cranes is lying, Mr. Irvin, but about 11 months ago, Chicago landlords, you think your taxes are high? They are, but check out Aurora. Aurora homeowners are taxed at the highest effective rate among 53 top US cities. So again, I don't know if they're lying or not, but I'm not lying. I'm guessing.
The Illinois Department of Revenue. That's our state. Look at our state.
Okay, again, don't call them a liar if you want to, but I think they get their stuff straight pretty well. Okay, back to this, how am I going to work with it? Okay, number one, I will also have the resources to support Republicans across the board. We got to win this. We got to win the House back and win more in the Senate as well. I've built many grassroots, not just my businesses, but a couple of national organizations, Job Creators Network being one of them, Turning Point USA with Charlie Kirk being another one. And these organizations are, basically nonpartisan. We don't care if you're Democrat or Republican. We're solving causes for freedom and for free enterprise. and Democrats and Republicans alike want jobs. They all want safety and less crime. They all want parents, in my opinion, to have a say so in their kids' educations and whether or not their 12-year or 13-year-old daughter gets an abortion. These aren't Democrat and Republican issues, in my opinion. They go across the aisle. When I look at again fighting for things I believe in, I don't look at Democrats and Republicans. I built my businesses with people from across the board. Recently, we fought, as I say, we fought against the vaccine mandate, Biden's vaccine mandate. This is for Democrats and Republicans across the country. Over 80 million jobs, working people do not have to take a vaccine if they don't want one, because we won at the U.S. Supreme Court level. We represented all working class people, probably mostly Democrats. And I got to tell you, I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. We got major problems we have to turn around in Illinois, and people are going to know I'm the guy that can do it. Thank you.
Paul Schimpf, how about if you go next?
Thanks, Jim. Regardless of the composition of the Illinois General Assembly, a Republican governor can do a lot to improve life in our state by reining in the Illinois administrative agencies. It's the Illinois administrative agencies that are what people interact with most of the time. They are the ones that are making it difficult for our businesses. They are the ones that are taking away our individual freedoms. And as governor, I will rein in the Illinois administrative agencies. And I have the experience and the background to do that. I am the only person on this call today who served 2 years on JCAR, the Joint Committee for Administrative Rules. I have that background that nobody else has to rein in the Illinois administrative agencies. And when it comes to elections, there's been a lot of, we all have ideas, but, really the first step to making any positive change in Illinois is you have to send J.B. Pritzker back to his true calling as a bathroom renovator. We have to make that change in government. We need a change in the governor's office. And really, you need to be talking about how you're going to win this election. I know I don't have a billionaire backing me right now like other candidates do, but I will have money in the general election. But the thing that's most important is not the money, it's party unity. Ask Mark Kirk in 2016 how his money helped him. Ask Bruce Rauner in 2018 how his money helped him. Unless you have a unified Illinois Republican Party behind you, which means both the conservative base and the suburban moderates, you simply cannot win in Illinois. And if you're running a flamethrower campaign going after other Republicans, you're not going to be able to put the party back together and win this November. And that's what we need. We cannot make the change we need unless we win in November, and you have to have a unified party to do that. I will submit that I'm the guy that has the best chance of unifying the Illinois Republican Party.
Thank you. Max Solomon?
Thank you, Jim. The reality, Jim, is that any Republican governor is going to have a hard time dealing with the majority of Democrats in Springfield. And that's partly because of the GOP in Illinois. The GOP in Illinois has basically given up on Illinois, especially Cook County. You go to vote and you see a lot of seats that are uncontested by Democrats. And with that kind of power in the legislature, the Democrats are not incentivized or motivated to want to deal with any governor. They're just going to wait them out like they did Rauner. It's unfortunate. So here's what I plan to do. There are 118 seats for state reps and 59 seats for state senators. I'm going to make sure that starting in the midterm election, every single one of those seats are contested. Not in Illinois again would we have an uncontested seat, especially for state rep and state senators. We have to understand that, and we got to take control of that. And hopefully we'll let the people vote. I live in Cook County, Jim, and I've gone around homes and knock on doors. And one of the first things people tell me when I identify as a Republican is, wow, where have you been? We don't have a lot like you. And they're talking about race. Obviously, we've got to make sure that the African-American community understands that it's okay to be a conservative or to be Republican and vote your values and beliefs. We've got to do that. And when you negotiate, you have to understand the power dynamics. You cannot step into any negotiation room without understanding how the powers, the Democrats are simply not motivated. Even if the governor vetoes, they have enough number to override the vetoes. So we have to go back to the drawing board. This is a GOP problem to solve, back to the drawing board. And that's what I intend to do.
Thank you. And Jesse Sullivan.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm a next generation conservative outsider. And I am so sick and tired of these corrupt insiders who have driven our state into the ground. I'm not only talking about the Democratic Party, I'm talking about the establishment Republican Party and those who do the same exact pay-to-play politics behind closed doors that the Democrats do. And, I was betrayed by Bruce Rauner and his administration in the way he said he held certain values. And then when he got in office behind closed doors, did the exact opposite. This corrupt insider group that ran all of Rauner's stuff are now backing Richard Irvin. They are basically the same campaign. And I have faced, he talks about this backing of resources to support the rest of the party. Well, you know what I've seen as another candidate in this? They've said, oh, you need to quit working with Sullivan. You can't support him because otherwise you're not going to get access to those resources. It's the same old corrupt insider games. It's the same pay to play politics that the largest donors for Richard Irvin in the city of Aurora got the largest city contracts. There's a reason for that. And so for me, I am going to be a next generation conservative outsider that attracts in other next generation outsiders. We are going to get them in place and we are going to run agencies well. You're going to have executive orders. We are going to do vetoes, but we are also going to go out into these districts and say, hey, look, we need somebody who is not beholden to this corrupt system to come in to change Illinois politics. That is a part of my calling and stepping in to do this as governor, is to lead a new group of people to actually do politics differently. I don't want to elect a new governor. Who cares if you're wearing a mask of a Republican? You step behind closed doors, do the exact same pay-to-play corruption politics that we've seen, selling out the people of Illinois. That is exactly why I'm running to be governor, is to prevent that from happening.
Okay. Oh, our time is running short. Irvin, I'd like to give you just a real quick.
One more. I didn't get to answer that one.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Yes.
That's all right. It gets a lot of us. I got elected in 2019 with the hopes and the idea that I was going to show up in Springfield and that I was going to be able to tell my children and my grandchildren that I did everything that I could within my ability to protect their future. But in 2019, I showed up with Governor Pritzker, and I showed up for the first time ever, the super minority in the House and in the Senate. And I began to realize very quickly why that was. Because the Illinois Republican Party is lacking of courage, boldness, and leadership. The leadership in our parties and at the state party, they're lacking. There's no difference for the most part between Illinois Democrats and Illinois Republicans, aside from maybe life. And when I had to stand up and push back against Avery Bourne, when she and 20 other Republicans came together to vote to double our gas taxes, I began to wonder, what on earth is this about? And then later, a year later, when I stood up and fought back against Governor Pritzker on these mandates, I showed back up in Springfield and I had to fight her again over the same mandates on the floor. This is the problem. And if you want to know who these people are, well, then check out the endorsements to the Irvin Bourne campaign, and you will find out why the Illinois Republican Party is so weak. We need leadership. And that's exactly what I've been doing every day. That's why I am here, because I communicate with people via social media, via being on the spot like I am today in Chicago. And I offer hope. I offer ideas. We listen. And we began to work together, as I've been able to do the last 4 years as a state legislator. But people are giving up hope on the Republican Party, the party of Lincoln, the party that believes in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but a party that has watered its message down for prestige and power. power blinds. I have seen that so vividly during my time in Springfield, and I'm tired of it. And I'm going to stand up and call those people out, because until we do that, we're not going to be any different than any other administration. Republicans tend to get elected, and you know what they focus on many times? They focus on how I get reelected. And there's where the compromise of values and morality come into play. So there's no sense in Republicans voting for energy bills that allow eminent domain. There's the reason why Republicans should be increasing gas taxes like Richard Irvin did a few years ago in the city of Aurora by raising their gas tax up by 2 cents. There's no reason that we should be supporting any tax increase. We should be standing for prosperity for all here in Illinois. And again, I think I've showed the fortitude, the leadership, and the boldness to do that. And I look forward to serving in that capacity.
Thank you.
You mind if I respond?
We've only got time for probably one more question, but Mayor Urban, I'd like to give you a second to at least respond to the question of.
It'll only take a second. I believe Mr. Sullivan said that he was betrayed by Rauner, but that's strange because when Rauner was in office, you lived in California. So I'm not really sure what you're betrayed about. You lived in a whole different state with a whole different government.
It's called business.
And as far,
Wait, no, let's with the lies. Really quickly, I need to respond to the lies.
I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet.
We'll get back to you, Mr. Sullivan, in a second. I'll come back.
To confront the lies, because the 10 million he's been running on air against me, I'm not able to combat those with quite the same amount of money. So now I've got him live in person to do it.
You also made a second comment that it was that my campaign was being run by Rauner's team. Is actually Darren Bailey's. The guy that ran Rauner's campaign is now running Darren Bailey's campaign, Mark Harris. So I think you're a little mistaken about
your
that.
messaging, sir, is the exact same thing that I fought 4 years ago. The lies and the attacks, they're different mailers. You can't tell the truth about yourself, and you sure as heck can't tell the truth about anybody else, period.
Sounds like you know how to tell a lie, we will lie yourself.
Okay.
Yeah, so quickly, just on the California piece really quick, because they tried to label me this whole corrupt insider class. So I went out to Stanford Business School because I wanted to create jobs for people to get out of poverty. So I went out to Stanford Business School, 2 years. As soon as my wife was done teaching, that finished out the year, we came right back to Illinois, central Illinois, right where I'm from, a few miles from where I grew up on my farm, so I can raise my kids the exact same way I was raised in central Illinois. We need to attract in the talent of the future into Illinois, and I'm the best person to do that. And the best way is getting rid of these corrupt insider politicians who tell lies on TV with a whole lot of money that have no truth behind them.
Okay, so we've got time for one more question. I'd like to ask Marnie or Lisa if either of you has something that we haven't talked about yet.
I wanted to ask the candidates. Recently, we've had an increase in COVID cases. It's about double the average number of cases in May compared to April. Hospitalizations are up too, but not as much. So I know you all disagree with Governor Pritzker's handling of the pandemic. I would like to know what you would do to keep people safe and healthy, assuming, we are going through another spike in cases.
Max Sullivan, let's start with you.
That would be me?
Yes.
Sullivan? Okay,
Max
thank you.
No, Max Sullivan, I'm sorry.
Thank you. One of the things that government is responsible for when it comes to safety is to empower its residents to make the best decisions for themselves. And that's why I oppose mandates. There's no one in the world that loves me better, except God, better than I do. I want to be responsible for my own health. I want to be responsible for the decisions that I make that impact my health. And that's what we have to do as government to empower the people. I want people to take personal responsibilities for themselves. As far as COVID is concerned, we government should provide the resources, face masks if they need them, vaccines to whoever need them, whatever doctors recommend, access to prescription drugs, experimental drugs, whatever we need to allow people to make the best decisions for themselves and their family. government should not intrude. Government should not force upon anybody to do something, especially when it comes to under the threat of losing their jobs or their livelihoods, or forcing their kids to do what is contrary to what the parents believe in. So I answered the question by saying, I turn it back to the individual. What would you like to do to protect yourself, to be healthy? And that's what I would empower you to do and encourage you to do, without shutting down your life, without shutting down your businesses, and definitely without locking you in order to make you think that I'm protecting you.
Okay, Paul Schiff.
I know that we're really short on time. I could talk on this for 15 minutes, but I'm going to keep it really, really brief. This election really, I think, can be summarized, regardless of the race. It can be whether it's Congress, whether it's governor, whether it's local officials. It can really be distilled down into one issue, even one word, and that is trust. And as that applies to the pandemic, it's simple. Who do you trust to make medical decisions for individuals? I think everybody else, on this call will agree that we need to trust we need to trust individuals to make their own medical decisions because they know best their situation, individuals and their treating physicians. Now, the one thing that I will do differently than J.B. Pritzker ever did in terms of if we have some kind of new pandemic or some new crisis that comes up, I will do three things very differently. One, I will partner with the Illinois General Assembly. I will not be afraid of legislative oversight. That makes the response better if you have more people looking at it. The truth is not afraid of transparency. Two, I will adhere to the rules that I set for the people of Illinois. J.B. Pritzker didn't follow the rules he set for everybody else. He lost all moral authority because of that. And three, I will tell the people of Illinois the truth. J.B. Pritzker was not honest with the people of Illinois. He didn't understand the science. He told us that our veterans in the LaSalle Veterans Home were getting the best care possible. I think he made that remark one day before we lost 7 veterans on Veterans Day alone. So I will be the leader that Illinois needs. I will not betray the people of Illinois like J.B. Pritzker did.
Thank you. Gary Rabine.
Yeah, so I was involved in the Republican Governor Association when the pandemic first hit, when COVID first came out, on a weekly basis, meeting with the governors of the country on calls. And on my LinkedIn, I was stating what I believed after listening to the experts, listening to scientists and all the best consultants in the world to these governors. And I listened to Ron DeSantis making a bold decision to strive to protect lives and livelihoods. I agreed with them 100%. And I stated that a bunch of times in my LinkedIn over the course of that time. I also believe that, you don't pick winners and losers in business, of course. That's not up to government to do that. And then when the vaccine mandates, when the overreach of that everybody should be vaccinated came out, I fought it. It was expensive. It was time consuming. People said I was crazy, but Job Creators Network CEO, myself, and 5 other CEOs were plaintiffs against Biden and OSHA. And it took a few months, but on January 14th, we won that Supreme Court decision against the vaccine mandates, freeing up over 80 million people. And for me, it's about freedom. I mean, it was a free country. We need to stay free. Government overreach is out of control. And again, whether you believe in vaccinations and you believe in masks, many of my best friends and family members are staunch vaccine people. I've gotten vaccines all my life, but many people, still agree whether they're vaccinated or not, they're pro-vaccine or not, that it's an overreach for government to step in the way of our lives to tell us we should do anything against our own health or religious beliefs. So there's a study that came out about a month ago. The states and the governors that did the best through COVID and the worst, and they used 3 things. They used economy, violence, and then they rated economy, violence, and the third thing was health. Okay, in Illinois we were average, just below average in health and life's loss and health. And when it came to economy, we were one of the worst, one of the bottom 3 or 4. When it came to violence and death, we were one of the bottom as well. So states that didn't lock down performed way better than us. States that respected freedom did way better than us. And states that didn't lock down did, in almost all cases, better than us, even on health. So again, we've got to look at that performance and say something's wrong. And when we have a governor that didn't collaborate with his 177 legislators at any time through that whole thing, made these decisions all on his own, we realized we had a weak leader. We got to make sure the next leader is much stronger and much collaborative and cares about lives and livelihoods.
Thank you, Mayor.
I'll just say that because the question was asked, what would you do differently in J.B. Pritzker? And what I wouldn't do is I wouldn't impose executive orders that drastically affected people's lives and their businesses without including the stakeholders that were affected so drastically. I would give in local control to our local leaders who know their communities best. For example, the city of Aurora, I know city of Aurora best and what we need to do to protect ourselves. But, in trying to speak to the governor's office, they could care less about my input as the mayor of the second largest city, of the state. It's local control is very important. So we can all work together to protect our families, our friends, our neighbors, and ourselves in that situation. What J.B. Pritzker did, exercising these executive orders, shutting down businesses that many of them that never opened, messing up the state's economy for years to come, and making Americans do, forcing Americans to do things that we didn't want to do. That's absolutely wrong, and that's not what a leader does. As the mayor of Aurora, I'm always collaborative in how I make decisions, and when I make huge decisions that affects our community as a whole, I always involve our stakeholders and other leaders in the community. I'll do the same thing as governor of the state.
Darren Bailey.
Government educates, government informs, and government provides solutions. We as Americans, we're smart people. We can figure this out. We know if we need to stay home or go somewhere and how to protect ourselves. That is up to us to do that. It's interesting. I was delivering PPE to a local prison, and during the very day that the idea came to me to sue Governor Pritzker, we were out doing stuff, providing things that the state government wasn't even doing at that time. And it had a noise there in the background. I think it's very important that we don't lose sight of who we are as Americans. And I want to address a comment that was made with the question in regards to the fact that all of us here might have the same mindset, because I don't think that's true again, and you'll be amazed at that. But while Richard Irvin was celebrating Dr. Ezekiel Day, now this is someone who is at the head of our Illinois Department of Public Health, and at the time as a state legislator, and in the early days, Paul was there with me. We never got answers to anything. We were told about the facts. We were told about the data consistently, and we asked for that. And even our friends on the other side of the aisle never received any of that. So the mayor of Aurora, he decided to celebrate Dr. Ezekiel and call her a hero. The mayor of Aurora during this same time frame was hugging on him a lot and applauding Lightfoot and Pritzker over their mandates. I stood with upset parents in the schoolyards in Aurora because they were among the last schools to be open. So I'm going to tell you what, friends, we need to understand the facts. We need to be informed on these issues and who stands for what. My representative, my state office never closed 5 days a week. We were there. I was there answering the phones from people who were pushed out of business, that didn't know what to do, people who weren't getting their unemployment checks once they were let go from their jobs. We were there. We'll be there. And that's how we fix and solve Illinois.
Thank you. Richard Irvin, if you'd like to take just a couple seconds to talk about Ezekiel.
Say this. That's what I call a hypocrite. He says he fought against masks, but on his very own farm, he had his migrant workers that he trucks in from out of this country having a mask mandate and forced to wear masks on his very farm. So that's hypocrisy.
Okay, well, we'll let that go then. And Jesse Sullivan, we'll end with you. If you could.
Yeah, great. So J.B. Pritzker loved to tout science, during this, that they were the party of science. Well, I think look at Johns Hopkins and the research they did to actually lay out the data around which states locked down and which states stayed open. You will see that there was next to no difference in COVID rates between those states, but there were huge economic impacts and there were huge learning outcome impacts for our children. So I think that what that requires us to do is, you look at a governor like J.B. Pritzker and you have to say he was wrong, and you look at a governor like Ron DeSantis and you say he was right, as much as people who want to be his opponents, if you really look at the data, he was right on this. And he prioritized freedom and liberty. And it's really being rooted in a set of values that allow you to lead during really tough crisis times. And so I think for me, the Republican values I hold is not only freedom and liberty, it's also local control. And I'm from Central Illinois, a town with one stoplight in the entire county. It's very different from Cook County. And we should have decentralized control to allow local leadership to make these decisions for themselves. And being a parent to young kids, to be able to represent them and their values and interests, like returning power back to parents. If you want to know my overall governing philosophy, it's take power away from corrupt insider politicians and trust the people of Illinois with that power again. And that is the way that I will lead as governor.
Can I respond to the accusation, just 10 seconds?
Yes, sure. I just don't want to get more accusations.
No, this is, I won't mention it. Yeah, this is a defense of me. This is amazing because people have fled the state of Illinois. People are still at home garnering, these gross overpayments of this COVID money. And because of that, many businesses, are finding it difficult to find help. So in agriculture, we are able to participate in what's called a federal program, an H-2A program, because it is difficult to find seasonal help. And because of that, you have to adhere, you have to offer these standards. So the only reason that's on our web page is because of federal law. Check it out and understand that. And then I'll tell you what, come down to Bailey Family Farm. And I would love to give you a turn. I'll let you talk to any one of our employees and you ask them how many times they've wore a mask or needed to social distance and find out the truth for yourself. So that I wanted to offer that. BaileyForIllinois.com. Check us out, understand the truth and the facts. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you all very much. Thank you so much to all the candidates. I'm sure we could talk for much longer, but this has to conclude our interview today. Again, we've been speaking with candidates for the Republican nomination for Illinois governor. We thank them for their time and their participation. We remind voters that the primary election is June 28th. Winner of this primary will face off against the winner of the Democratic primary featuring Governor J.B. Pritzker, his challenger, Beverly Miles. We encourage voters to research the candidates and issues in all the races, to make use of the Daily Herald and www.dailyherald.com as part of that research. And thank you all for watching and stay well.
Thanks for having us. Bye now.